Okay, I'm sharing my screen, Justice. I'm hiding my video panel. I'm checking my audio. Microphone is on. Audio is good. Okay, we are live, Justice. Justice, we are live. And action. Love it. This is a fun class. Project due tonight. Raise your hand if you're done with the project. All done. Brennan, you win. You win the prize, Brennan. You win. You're a little bit lost. Raise your hand if you think you're almost done. Like you've got most of it done, but you need a little bit of help. Okay. All right. Raise your hand if you haven't started yet. Okay. Okay. There's some honesty out there. There's still time. It's not due till 5 o'clock. Oh, is it due at midnight? It's not due till midnight. Sorry, you guys were planning to do this like at 10 p.m. or something? Yeah, let me double check. I think it's supposed to be due at midnight. Let me just double check. This is the homework project. Yeah, it's due at midnight tonight. Where's your sash? That doesn't count. That doesn't count. That's terrible. Sure.
I did I got everything right. It's just I did it on this table. I had exactly where the table needed to be.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Everything works.
Sure. Yeah, that's an easy fix. Yep, we can fix that real quick. Okay, great. My plan for today is I'd like to go ahead and address or do the content for today, which is writing macros from scratch. I've got a schedule of classes, actually. You could probably relate to this list. And in it, we're going to be doing a loop. Raise your hand if you have finished the loop on your project. Okay, there's like 3 people in here have finished their 4.
Yeah.
3 people have finished it. Really?
Yes. And then I hit submit on the project and it messed my whole spreadsheet.
It messed your. I can't laugh. I shouldn't laugh. You hit submit and it messed up your project.
Then I hit submit on the project and it just unending loop and it messed up the spreadsheet.
Sorry. Okay. I mean, that happens, you know? I'm not sure how that happened, but we could look at it too. We could look at it. Yeah, raise your hand if that's a good point. Raise your hand if you've used chat for this project at all. Okay, not as many as I thought. My experience has said that chat is like too verbose on the code. I mean, it's almost like it writes 10 pages of code, which you could write in like a page and a half or 2. So yeah, if you ask for simplification, maybe that helps. Usually VBA, ChatGPT writes this really, really, it's kind of like recording macros sometimes. Bryson. No, you can submit as many times as you want, but it takes the top 2 submissions and says whichever one's higher, that's your grade for the assignment. You can submit it up to twice for the grade. But if you really want to figure out what's the right thing, you can keep submitting. It just won't count to your grade. It'll just take the first 2. No. Let me double check that branch just in case. Just in case I'm wrong. I've known to be wrong like once. Yeah, so it should submit highest of the first 2 submissions right there. So you should that should work. But we can look at that. We'll look at that. No, because then what happens is everybody just like you know what happened? They've done research on this, right? If you change it to more than 2, the first one is like a freebie. Nobody really does anything. They find out what's wrong. It's like, you know, it's just like a 2 is like, I really got to get this right. And I got to get it right now. It's a better way to spend your time to have 2 submissions rather than more submissions. Yeah, you wouldn't know. It's okay. It's okay. So let's say a prayer. I'm going to dive into the content for today. And at the very end of class, let me see if I can save 15, 20 minutes, talk about any questions we have in the project. Sound good? I don't want to spend the whole class on the project, so I'm going to put that at the end. And most people that I've talked to, the biggest problem is the loop. And we'll cover that before the end of class. So this should be helpful. Let's start with a prayer. Who would like to say a prayer for us? Anybody? That's funny, Chris. Carter's on it. He's already folding his arms. Thanks, Carter.
Heavenly Father, we're good for the time we had to class. Learn some more about PPA. Understand our knowledge for this university and for the chapter.
Amen. Thanks very much. Okay, let's go writing macros from scratch. Here we go. I'm going to download the schedule 2. I'm going to download the file. I'm going to save as, and I'll save it in my downloads, which isn't the best, but then I'm going to open up my downloads folder. I'm going to right click on the file, go to properties, and I'm going to unblock the file, click OK. I'm going to open this up. Okay, this file is an interesting file. It contains, let me update. No, I won't update that now. It contains a list of classes from 2017. And there's about, how many? 54 classes from the accounting department. How about that? They're all accounting classes. They meet on different days of the week. And they have different start and end times. Here's the instructor name. Here is the size, section size, and the enrollment, total enrollment, with the class name. And then over to the right are some columns for times of the day, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So from 8 to 5 in the day. And the intent here of this spreadsheet is to map out all of these classes. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to take this information here and we're going to try to map this out for the times of the day. So for example, if we come to row 4 here, that meets Monday, Wednesday, 11 to 12:15. We're going to say, okay, this class meets 11 to 12:15. So let's fill this in with a color. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to visually create, no, we're trying to use VBA to create a visual representation of these classes, right? What if some of these classes are in the same room or they want to change rooms? Is there another opening for this class on a different day and time, right? We could see that here through doing some kind of visual. Very quickly we can see, oh, this class meets from 11 to 12:15, so that room's taken, right? So this is what we're trying to build here. This is the goal. Let's think about this. How would we structure this? Anybody have any ideas about how we would structure approaching this particular situation? If statements, why? Yeah, that's a good idea. So we could do if statements. If 11 o'clock, then yes. Great. There is going to be some logic. Great. Any other ideas? Conditional formatting, that's an idea. Kind of embedding the logic into the formatting itself. That's pretty interesting. Cool. What else? Any other ideas? Okay, there's probably two structural steps that I would suggest. One is we're going to need a loop that goes through each row all the way down, right? So we could probably build a loop to do that. And inside of that loop, we could call another sub procedure that says, okay, given this one class at this one time, how do we take this information for this class and represent it accurately over here, right? That could be kind of a second sub procedure or a second structural area of the program, right? So what I'm doing is I'm trying to break this problem down and saying, okay, the first part could be let's build a loop. And inside of that loop, let's call another procedure that says for each row, post the color for that row, right? And that would be kind of a separate sub procedure. So you could do this in one sub procedure. We're going to try two. So let's start with a loop. Let's start, what are the basic components of building a loop, which just says, let's just go through every row until we don't have any more rows. That's all we're going to do. And we'll let's print the row number or something like that, just to help us see that we're progressing through each row, okay? So if I open up my Visual Basic here, I go into Visual Basic, I've got make schedule. So I've already got a name for my sub here. In the modules, there's nothing else here. And so let's write a sub that does a loop. Let's start there. So I'll come down here. Let's do, let's dim a row counter, R as long. Last time we talked about how long data type is going to allow us to account for all the rows in the spreadsheet, right? Right now we only have 55 rows of data here. But what if we wanted to include everything? That would be 1.04 million rows. So if we do a data type as long here, we don't really have to think about it. We have enough data space in our variable to account for every row. So dim R is long. And let's go ahead and set R is equal to 2. Since 2 is the second row, it's the first row of our data, we don't have to worry about the header row. We'll just say R is equal to 2. And let's add a do loop here. So we'll do a do, and we'll do a loop. We've talked a little bit about this before. I like to include a do events right at the end of my loop, just to help me remember that if I get into an unintended, if I forget to stop the loop, if my own code is causing me into an unending loop, the do events will allow me to get out of it. And we also need to increment. So let's increment our row number. So R is equal to whatever the previous was plus 1. So the first time it goes through this loop, R is 2. So the 2 is going to go here. It's going to say 2 plus 1 is 3, and it's going to put 3 into the R by running that line, right? It takes the 2, adds 1 to it, and assigns it a new value. Okay, it's now 3. So we're going to increment the row that way. Let's see. What else do we need? We need a way to stop the loop. So how do we stop this loop? There's a couple different ways to do it. I think before we did this, do until something is true, right? So everything after the word until, whatever we put here after until, once that resolves to true, then it will get out of the loop. It'll stop doing the loop, right? So what could we put in here to that once it's true, it'll stop the loop? We can do kind of an empty cell, right? We can say is do until is empty. That's one word. That's a function. Is empty, and let's use cells R, comma 1. So cells is going to refer to all the cells on this sheet. This is the active sheet. R is referring to the row that we're in. The 1 is referring to the column.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to
That's
you.
you? I think that's you. I think that's you.
Happy birthday to you.
Oh, you guys are the best. How did you know? Oh yeah, you're my daughter. This is my daughter and her friend Savannah. There's Sarah and Savannah. This is the choir.
I will fix that when I said it.
Sarah's on your left, Savannah's on the right.
For reference, my name is Eli Lake.
That's not his name. Thanks, I appreciate that. Yes. Yeah, it's all, we have another birthday in here too. There's two birthdays in. Do you guys want to sing again? Okay, but you have to show them. You have to show them. You know what I'm saying. Show them. So show them the sash. Show the sash. Is that cool or what? I guess so. Maybe next year. That's it? You're just okay. No, that's fine. I'm just curious. Hey, thanks. That's really nice. What are we doing? How would you describe this? We are pushing the boundaries of data analytics and supply chain management. Is that accurate?
We're going past the bounds.
We're way past the boundaries now. In short, we are creating a do loop to investigate the possibilities of creating a visualization to help us arrange scheduling of academic classes. Thanks, guys. That's really nice. You guys are the best. Oh, thanks. Okay, great. Hey, thanks. See you guys. Bye-bye. Isn't that nice? That's so nice. Hunter, we need to talk after class. Just kidding. That was so awkward, though. That was so weird.
Your mic picked him up when he asked that.
I so hope it did. I want to watch, so you can relive that.
I don't know if I want to ever think about that again, Hunter.
Oh, you will though.
Yeah, it's hard to forget, I guess. That's nice. That was so nice. Did you guys want to sing to me?
Yeah.
I mean, since we're in the singing mood, what if somebody writes a VBA script that has like blinking lights with a happy birthday sound behind it?
Extra credit.
Don't tempt me.
I'll send you.
That's a good one. I'm almost there. I almost said yes. I'm in my moment of weakness. I just haven't given extra credit in this class for like 5 years. I feel like it would be dishonorable for all those previous students. I feel like I would be betraying 500 students. Wait, how many? I don't know. I've given extra credit in my 361 class. I gave like 30 points of extra credit today. It was too crazy. But I feel like the 400 classes, you guys are just here for the learning. You're not here for the grades. You're beyond grades at this point. I think you guys would pass. You guys are smart. You guys are smarter than me. You guys are smarter than me. Okay. Well, happy birthday. Way to go. It's a good date. Do you know who else is born on January 29th, by the way? Do you remember? Well, yeah. I was thinking like celebrity level or higher. No, not Trump. Yeah, that's interesting people. Okay, should we get back to class? All right, we'll march on. We'll march on here. Let's see, where was I? Do loop. Okay, so we're trying to figure out where do we stop the do loop? That's where it was. And so we're saying until is empty, cells R1. So we're saying we're referencing the cells. We're saying the row, whatever that row is, because it's going to increment. So cells 2, 1, and then this is dot value. So we're going to say dot value, and we'll close it off like that. And let's just test this, okay? So if I come up here to immediate window, and I'll say cells, I'm going to replace the R with a 2, comma 1 dot value. What does that say? 2017. So it's pulling cells row 2, column 1. So it's pulling that 2017. Okay. Let's test for 55. So if I do cells 55, comma 1 dot value 2017, that's this set 2017. If I do cells 56, comma 1 dot value, it's got nothing there, right? And I could do is empty, and I can say this equals true, and it would say, yes, this is true, because this is an empty cell. And so it's saying, yes, this is true, and this is true. It's doing comparison. Yes, this is true. It's true that this cell right there is empty. So we can use this to say, okay, is empty this last cell. When I get to R is 56, it will stop this loop. It'll pull out of the loop. It'll be done. Okay, good. So we have our loop here. By the way, this could be a very similar loop to what you want to do in your project, right? You want to make sure you're on the right column. I think in the project it uses the active cell. So the R is going to be like an active cell thing, but it's going to go through each row using an active cell. Once the active cell is empty, it can leave the loop. You might say it'll stop the loop. It'll get out of the loop. Okay, good. Okay, so we've created a loop here. And let's just go ahead and debug print. Let's do a debug print here inside the loop so that we can see that it's actually working. Debug.print. What should we print? Let's print the row. Let's just print R. And then let's run this puppy. Ready? Here we go. I'm going to click on play. Boom, there it is. Let me take the comment out so it goes horizontal, or I mean vertical instead of horizontal here. So debug print R, and there it is. So we have gone through every row except one. Why is 1 not here? Yeah, very good. R is 2. Okay, so we've gone from 2 all the way down to 55. Okay, neighbor check. Neighbor, here's where I'm at. Tell your neighbor where you're at. Ready, set, go.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Andrew, where are you at?
Good.
Jared's good. Great. Cody's good. Let's see, who doesn't have a Carter? Who's your neighbor? You guys are long distance neighbors.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's cool. Kind of remote neighbors. That sounds good. You're good? You're good? Okay. Eli, do you have a neighbor? Are you good? Jaden? Hunter? Too young. Hunter, way too young. Way too young.
So that game, bro, all the time.
In high school. High school. She's not even 17. That just made that whole comment much more awkward. Sorry, Hunter, that was, I don't mean to harp on that. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't twist. I just think that was kind of funny. If I didn't know you, I think it'd be really weird, but I know you, so it's not a, sorry.
Still weird though.
Wait, that was weird too.
That was.
Sorry. Okay. The more I talk about it, the weirder it gets. Okay. Okay, so we have our loop. This is good, right? I think at this point we're ready to go to the next level here. What's the next level? We need a way to run each line. So this gets us through every row. So let's call another sub here. Let's call it, let's call it schedule 1. Maybe that's the name of the sub. And we're going to pass it the row number. So notice this syntax here, schedule 1 space R. That is, no, good question. No space here, just between the 1 and the R. So this is all one word. That's what you said? One word, one string. And so let's come down here. We're going to create another sub down here. And this sub's going to be sub schedule 1. And this is what we're going to do. And this sub is what we're going to do with the colors. This is where we're actually going to get to the colors. So notice again, maybe I'm belaboring this point. I'm kicking a dead dog. But the idea here, I mean, no offense against dead dogs. The idea is splitting this apart, right? What I like, one of the things I really like about this VBA idea is that there's a little bit of creativity here, right? There's ways that you have to think creatively about solving a problem. It's not just a tell me what to do and I'll do it, right? This is a little bit of a creative skill here. And we're going to pass some information to this sub. We're going to pass it the row. And so this is the second sub. Schedule 1 is what it's called, but we actually need to add a parameter inside of these parentheses. Usually when we write a sub, those parentheses are blank. There's nothing in between them, like the make schedule. In this case, we're going to say, actually, we need to pass a parameter, a variable. And that's going to be anything we want to call it. Let's just call it row. As long. Which means I can use the word row down here. And if I wanted to, I could comment out this debug print here, and I could debug print this just to make sure we're getting that row number through. But I would call it row down here because row comes from this name right here. So we're passing it R up here. Here's R. And for R in this sub is the row number. Once I pass the value of R to this sub, it's going to come in as row. And so in this sub, I'm going to talk about it as row. That same value is going to be a row, right? So I could run this make schedule sub, and it should print every row number up here, just like before. There we go. It's called this schedule 1 sub, and the printing is actually happening down here with this row variable. Okay, great. Let's do this. Let's run a macro and let's record, because here's something that I don't really know. It's like one of the things that I could probably figure out, but it's easier for me to run the macro and record myself doing it and then copy and paste the code rather than trying to figure out what the code is by myself, right? I mean, if I could underscore one of the best benefits of VBA, and you guys know this, one of the best benefits is you can do the action in Excel, record yourself doing it, and it gives you the VBA code, right? Isn't that remarkable? I mean, it's like ChatGPT's been there for decades. It's even better than that. It's not always perfect, but it's actually pretty cool. So I'm going to record myself coloring some of these rows. And I want to see what the code says when I color a couple of cells, right? So I'm going to click on Developer tab, click on Record Macro. I'll just save the default, and I'll select some cells. Let's see, where were we? Row 4. And it started at 11 o'clock and went to 12:15. I'll come over here and I'll say, fill this with a color. Let's do orange, kind of light orange. Accent 2, maybe, yeah, accent 2 lighter. And I filled the cells, and that's it. I'm going to stop my recording. Developer, stop recording. Now when I go back to here, I've got a module 2, which is where it recorded it. And we have a range here. This is the cells that were selected. And then it says, with this selection, change some of the interior properties of these cells. Notice here's a dot after selection. And then this with construction, I don't know if we've seen this very much. what we're doing is this with construction is saying all of the following lines have to do with selection.interior, right? So all of these are talking about the interior property of whatever is selected. So it turns out that the pattern is XL solid. There's a pattern color index, automatic. There's a theme color. There is a tint and shade. There's a pattern tint and shade. It turns out the one that we want is this interior color, theme color. In fact, I think there's another one that's just color. Let me just try that as well. I'm going to take all this out and I'm going to say dot color. Is that right? Equal to, there's a couple different ways that VBA represents colors. There are built-in VBA colors like VB green, and that will color it green. That's recognized as a viable color. The VB stands for Visual Basic, right? VB black, VB brown. I mean, there's all kinds of colors here. If we just do VB green, that should change the interior. In fact, let's clean this up even more. Let's put this up here and say interior dot color. Let's just make it one line. In fact, let's just take this whole thing right here. Selection dot interior dot color equals VB green. And I'm going to copy that and put this in my other module. So we know that at some point, we're going to color something. And this is the code that says color the interior green, right? So to test this, if I wanted to test this, if I go back to module 2, I could say, let's take this out and let's take this out. Let's say all I have left in this macro one is selection.interior.color equals VB green. Let's say that's the only code in here for this macro, and I wanted to test this out. I could say, let me come to some more cells here, right? Here's some cells here. If I run this macro, it fills it in green. Here's another cell. If I run this macro, it fills it in green. So we're good. So now we have the code to changing the color. Another option, by the way, to change the color is to do the function called, I want to say it's RGB. Is that the right one? I think it is. Let's try it. RGB. It's like a combination of red, green, and blue. And in this particular way, you can say the options are from 0 to 255. So if I wanted something all red, I would do 255 for the red, 0 for the green, and 0 for the blue. And that would change the color to red. There it is. There's our red. If I wanted all red and all blue, what does that look like? I would put 255 in here, a 0 for the green, and a 255 for the blue. And I could choose a cell and run this macro, and it'd be purple. There's our purple. So there's all kinds of combinations here that you can get at using this 3-color code for the color. Another way to do it is just putting in a number here. It turns out that there are 16 million different shades of color, which is pretty cool. It used to be 53 or something like that. And there's 16 million, and you can also use the number. So what is color 255? It's like that red, right? Interestingly enough, what do you think this color is? Oh boy. It's like a really dark red. It's like blood red. Isn't that weird? Isn't that awkwardly? I mean, 16 million, what are the chances? I don't know. I think that's kind of weird. Okay, great. So there's lots of different ways to do colors here. We'll just do 255 for now. And we'll say color red. Okay, great. We've got this. Let's put this back in our first module. Let me go ahead and clean out these fillings. These, I guess they're fillings. These colors, I'll go back to no fill. Clean this out and go back to the code. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and comment this line out right now. I just know that this is the kind of code that we want to use. I'll use 255 for the color at this point, and I'm just gonna comment it out. What I don't know is I don't know what cells to select yet, right? But I know how to change the color of a cell of whatever's selected using this code. Okay, great. Let's do this. Let's create a couple of variables that are going to help us here. Let's create a start hour. And this is going to help us figure out what hour do we want to start on, right? So for example, this 11 o'clock needs to start right here. What column is 11 o'clock in? AA, right? What if I don't know what column that is? Do you know what column that is? I can say active cell dot column 27. How about that? So what I need to do is I need to figure out a way in my code to say, if the start hour is 11 o'clock, I want you to start, my start column should be column 27. That's what I've got to figure out some logic to do that, right? If my start hour is 12:30, the 12th hour, what column is that? Active cell column, that is column 31. So anything that starts with 12 here, I want it to start in column 31. So that's where we're going to go. So we're going to create a start hour. And by the way, what kind of memory type should I use here? Kind of another preparation question for our midterm. How many hours are there in terms of start hours? 8 to 5, so not even 24, right? Less than 24. So let's use byte here. I mean, we could do integer, but this might be a good example of using a byte memory type, right? What's the limits to byte, by the way? What's the limits? Sorry? What was that? 255. I heard it. I wasn't sure. 0 to 255. Yeah.
I don't know who you were looking
Yeah, I wasn't yeah, I wasn't sure who it was. It's my birthday. I can look wherever I want. Wait, that was awkward. Hunter, I need some awkward limitation. I saw your eyes go up when I said that's not true, by the way.
As soon as you said that was awkward.
You and me both. Now, Hunter, it's you and me both. Okay, so we have dim start hour is byte. Let's do dim start column. Well, we need minutes too. Let's do dim start minute as byte as well, because we can do minutes. The minutes are basically, 15, 30, 45. Is that true? If I come back over here, what do our minutes look like? We have zeros and 30s. Here we have 15, 45s. Here's a 50. So yeah, we can do bytes as well for the minute. And let's do dim start column, or COL for column. And do we want to do byte there? Yeah, we can do byte there too. Because the largest column we have is only 545. Is that the largest one? And if I do my active cell on that, that's 54. So a byte is 255, up to 255. 54 is going to fit into that. So we'll use byte for that as well. Okay, so I've created 3 variables. I've got byte types as the data type. And let's see if we can figure some of this out, right? Which is, how am I going to convert an 11 o'clock start hour to a 27 start column? That's kind of where we want to go. Okay, great. Let's see. There's one more thing I want to do here before we start the next step, and that is I want to recognize here that this Schedule 1 sub, because it is requiring information to come into the sub, if I'm inside the sub and I want to run it, I click on play. Notice what pops up. It's not on this list, right? We see the macro one, we see the make schedule. But this Schedule 1 is not in the list of macros. Anybody know why? It's not doing anything? It's left out. Why is it left out? Right? If for any other macro, if I come here, for example, and I hit play, it's going to run this macro, make schedule. If I'm inside the schedule, my cursor is inside Schedule 1, I hit play, it says, which one you want to run? It doesn't let me run it. And the reason is because it requires input to be run, if that makes sense. So I can't run it like I can other macros because I've got to give it information in order to run. One of the ways that we can do that is I can set up a new sub, and let's call this sub runner. And it's like a one-line sub. And the one line is going to say schedule 1. And it's just going to call the other sub. And this is the one that I can run if I'm writing this, but I need to send it information. So I'm going to do schedule 1 for, I'm going to hard code the row in there. Notice how when I type 4, it recognizes that that's the input to that macro. And the reason why I'm doing this, the reason why I'm actually writing this sub is just so that I can run the sub while I'm debugging it, while I'm developing this sub procedure, right? I can't be in here and click on F5, it doesn't recognize it, but I can come in here and I can click on F5 and run that. If I'm in here, by the way, and I click F5, notice the first sub that comes up, if I put an A at the beginning of that name, Acme Sub Runner, I can just hit run and it will run the sub and it will call the sub that I'm asking for, which is kind of nice. So because this Acme Sub Runner starts with A, it's the first one on the list, and I can run that pretty easily, and it will run that sub. So what we've done so far, first thing we did is we made a loop, right? This loop works. We can go through every row in the sheet that has data, and then we'll stop at the end of the list. We've started to do a sub on coloring the rows, and we created a little sub, a sub runner, for us to be able to use when we're writing this Schedule 1 sub. That's kind of where we're at. We've got 3 variables. What we're going to try to do is convert the start hour to a start column. That's kind of where we're at. Okay. So now what do we do? Let's do this. Let's do a start hour. So let's see if we can create a start hour and fill that in with information. What would be the start hour? And right now we're looking at row 4 for kind of development purposes. What is the start hour of row 4? So row 4, the start hour is 11 o'clock. So we're going to go pull that 11 o'clock and put it into start hour. Interestingly enough, there is a function called hour, just like there's an hour function in Excel. We can use an hour function in VBA. It says pull the hour from this value. So we'll say hour, and we'll go back to cells. And the benefit of using the cells here is that we're going to refer to our row, which comes from here, that row that we passed in. But we need to figure out which column the hour is in. So which column is it in? Let's see, this is this column. Which column is this? And come up here, I can count it. I can also just figure it out here. And there's a couple different ways to do it. Column 9. I could also do column I. So there's a couple different ways I could put in the 9 here. I could do quote I, double quotes. Either way works. A number or the letter. Maybe lowercase is easier to see. I'm going to say choose the row that I'm on, choose column I, and then give me that value. What is the value of that cell? All right. So I could test that. I could come up here. I could say our cells row. Row is, let's say row is 4. Let's do I dot value, and that gives me the 11. So there's the 11. So we have cells with the row and the column, the value of that cell, but just give me the hour out of that cell, and that gives me 11. That's pretty cool. So now we can just take that 11 from that cell and put it into this variable start hour. And that's a big one. It's a great one. Let's do the same thing with minute. Turns out that there's one for minute too. Start minute is equal to minute cells row. What's the column here? Same column, right? So this is going to be I as well, dot value. And we could test that. If I copy this, go up to my immediate cell, type this in, it's an error. Why is that an error? Well, it turns out it doesn't have any minutes. That's why. Minutes are 0. So let's try row 5. So if I do, oh, my row wasn't defined either. If I do 5, that's going to be 30. Because row 5 says 12:30. So it's recognizing the minutes from that cell. If I do 4, that's 0. So I actually have to type in, I have to hard code the row here because row's not defined in my immediate window. The code's not running. If I wanted to do that, I could come in here and say stop. And I could run this one. It would stop here. And now I could come copy this. And row is defined, right? Because I'm in break mode. And so it's going to recognize, oh yeah, you're talking about row equals 4. Because we're in break mode. Okay, great. So we have our start hour. We have our start minute. How do we convert our start hour to our start column? Any thoughts there? This is where some of the logic gets to be a little bit interesting. You have to really think about this. Any thoughts about how do we go from 11, because we know what the start hour is, to what is this, column 27? Could we just add 16? We could, it's true, we could. Could we say start call is equal to start hour plus 16? Would that work? Let's see. What if the start hour is 8 o'clock? So if it's 8 o'clock, that would be what column? What column is column O? Does anybody know? 15. Okay, so this is one where 8 needs to be 15. So that probably wouldn't work. So just adding 16, if the start hour is 8 and we added 16, that's going to be like column 24. So that's not going to work. But if we notice here, all of the hours have 4 columns, and then there's another hour, right? 4 columns, another hour, 4 columns, another hour. So here's one way to do it. I think that we could try it. What if we said the start column is equal to the start hour times 4, right? 13, column 13 or column, what is it, 16? Each hour is 4 columns over from the previous hour, right? So what if we say start hour times 4? What does that give us? Let's debug that. Debug.print. Let's do start hour, comma, start column. And let's just see what that looks like. Let me comment this out, so that when we run this sub, all we're going to see is debug print the start hour and the start column. for every row. Let's see if we can do that. And that should give us a head start on this. So let me come up here, delete my immediate window, come back down here. Inside of this sub, I can hit the play button, and then it's selected Acme sub runner. That's only one row. What's my current row that I'm sending? I'm sending row 4. Let's send row 5. How about that? Because 5 has the 12:30. It's got the minutes side, so we can see the minutes too. Let's send row 5. And I'll run this, run Acme sub. Okay, so for row 5, the start hour is 12, and the column is 48. Is that the right column? Justice is given up. Justin, I think you might be the first student that's given up this whole class. You've given up too?
No, check it out right now.
Oh, okay. I thought you gave up. Justice, I'm sorry that you gave up. What can I do to help?
What do you call the, sub,
This one's not working?
yeah,
Do you have schedule 1, the same name as this?
yeah, everything.
And you have 5?
Yeah.
And what, do you get an error message?
Yeah.
What's the error?
Then, then, the-
Do you have underscores?
yeah, correct.
Okay, let me finish one more step and then I'll come help Justice so he doesn't quit.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay,
Number,
he got it?
number.
He's on board?
Yeah.
That was fast. Good job, Justice. That was good. Okay, here's what I was going to say. So right now we have start hour is 12, start column is 48. We need this to be what again for 12? Gosh, I can't remember. What was that column? 31. Okay, so we need 12, row 5, to turn into start column 31. And I think we're close. What we can do, what if we did 31, or what was it? 48 minus 31. What's 48 minus 31? 17. What if we took 17 off this? So if we multiply the start hour by 4, subtract 17, what does that do? Let's check this. So let me erase my immediate window, clean that out so I can see the results nice and clean. That's the only reason I clean it out, so I can just see the results cleaner. And then let's run this schedule 1, but I have to choose Acme sub runner to run it. It's going to pass in row 5. So we should see the start hour is 12, and we're hoping to see the start column be 31. Nice. This is okay. This is good, right? Let's test another one. What if we did, I don't know, row 8? I'm just kind of picking a random one. What should that be? 8 is the start time. Is that right? Here's my row 8, start time 8. That should be column O. What's column O? I think you're right. 15. Okay, this looks good. So what we're saying is this logic is going to help us turn the start hour into the start column. I think we got it. What do you guys think? If we come up here and run this sub up here, let's run the make schedule and let's see what happens. If we run the make schedule, we're going to go through every row because we know that's what this loop does here. It goes through every row. And let's see if we can get a start hour and a start column for every row. Okay, so I'll come up here, I'll run this, and there we go. It looks like we have a start hour and a start column. Let's just pick a couple of these and see if they're right. 8 and 15, we know that one's right. 12 and 31, we know that's right. Okay, here's one. 14 is the start hour. So that'd be 2 p.m. And it says 39 is the column. So this would be the column AM. Let's see if that's right. Whoops, hold on. Where'd I go? Lost it. What did I say it was? 39, 40 and 14. So 2 p.m. and 39. That's what we're looking at here. So what I'll do is I'll come in here. I'm just checking the active cell dot column. What's the column for the cell element 39? So 2 p.m. is indeed column 39. So I think we're there. I think we've got that at this point. So what we've done is we've been able to produce the start column from the start hour. Okay. Justice, do you want me to pause here for?
Yeah, I'm good, I'm good.
You're good? What about everybody else? Okay.
That just the way it is, or like, is there a reason it's u times by 4 and minus 17, or is that just the way it works out?
That's just the way it happens to work out given the spreadsheet. Yeah. Yeah, because we've got 4. If we divided the hour differently here, maybe 2 columns or something, then it would be different, right? Yeah, it's kind of specific to this design. Yeah. And we kind of had to discover that, right? We kind of had to kind of feel it out, what would work. And that's pretty common. It's pretty common from a VBA perspective. Yeah, good question. Grace?
This the one for the third column.
Start column. Yeah, I changed it a couple times. So we have open parentheses start hour times 4 in parentheses and then minus 17. Let me scroll up so you can see it a little bit better. Yeah. Okay, great. Let's do this. Take 30 seconds, maybe with your neighbor. What I think we're ready to do now is we need to duplicate this, right? What we need to do is we need to find an end hour, an end minute, and an end column. Okay, given what we've done up here, see if you can write the code for these 3. Ready, set, go. Yeah, so how do we do end hour, end minute, end column?
So that's 16. Instead of all those 13 values.
We probably don't do enough exercises in this class. You know, I should probably ask of this, which I probably do this more in class where you're actually exploring, trying to figure it out on your own. Okay, if you're not sure where to start, let me help you out. So first we'll create some new variables, right? End hour, we can do the same thing as byte, start or end minute as byte, and then end column as byte. And then when we come down here, the end hour is going to be pretty similar, right? Except it's going to be a different column. So we'll do hour, cells, same row. Instead of I, which column is it going to be? Is it J? Okay, right next to it. I, J, very good. From the end minute perspective, very close. We'll do minute, cells, row. Which column? J, very good. Same column as the hour. And then for the end column, this is kind of where the logic gets really crazy, maybe. From an hour perspective, we'll do the same thing. End hour times 4 minus 17. And that's going to give us the hours. But by the way, I forgot to add the minutes up here. So what we have so far is the hours. but we haven't actually done the minutes logic for either the start or the ending columns. So let's fix that one here too. Let me be a little bit consistent with my end column name here. So it has a capital C. And let me go back up to the start column. So when we say start a column, we have to take into account both the hour and the minute, right? And we've done the start hour, but now we need to do the start minute. This is an interesting one. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the start minute and we're going to divide by 15. So if the start minute is 30, if we divide 30 by 15, that's going to say 2. So we want to start 2 columns over from where the hour is. How about that? Not bad. Within the 4. Yeah, that's right. So if we're going to start at 2 p.m., let's say it's a 2:30 start. The start hour, the start column is going to be, it's going to be 2 p.m. That's going to be 39, right? That's going to evaluate to 39. We're going to add to that, if it was 2:30, we're going to add 2 more columns to that because 30 divided by 15 is 2. So it's actually going to start in column 32, if that makes sense. 30 here, adding 2 goes through, sorry, 39. So this is 39 if it starts at 2 p.m., right? 14 to 39. This is going to be 39. We're going to add 2 more columns to column 41. I think that's going to work. It turns out that there is a couple of times here that goes to 50s. And because of that, this equation here, this start minute divided by 15 is going to have some remainders. So let's do this. Do a CINT function, which is convert to integer. It's like a roundup way. So it's like a way to say, hey, just give me the number. CINT before this part right here. And that's going to change.
What does that stand for?
It's like convert to integer. We're going to take whatever this answer is and just convert it to an integer. Right? So if it's 2.6 or something like that, it'll convert it to 3. Okay, so now that we have our minutes here, we have our hours here, let's go down to end column and we'll add our minutes there. We'll do CIT end minute divided by 15, just like we did with the start. And we're almost there. We are almost there. So now what we can do is we can add a debug.print. Question?
Is that column, column minus 60 instead of minus 70? Because we're starting one column.
It turns out no, but that's a good question. We could test that. Should we test it? There's actually another way to do it, which is, now that I think about it, yes, you're exactly correct, but I was thinking of it a different way. So now that I'm thinking about it, yes, you could do this. And this is the way that I had done it. So you're right. You are correct. But I wasn't as fast as you. I just picked that up now. So you were ahead of me by a couple steps, but you're exactly right. Either way is fine, right? If you take that out here, the 17, make it 16, or if you add it on the end. Yeah, 100%. Very good. That's great. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's excellent. Okay, so now if we run this, let's run it, see what we get. We're looking for, again, we're just debugging printing, right? We've got a lot of logic here. Start hour, start column, end hour, end column. And we can run this for one line if we run this sub. We can run it for all lines if we run this sub. And we can check and say, okay, start column here was 12. Start hour was 12. And the column is 33. Start hour is 1 p.m. and the column is 37. And we can go back and check that. Okay, a couple more steps, and then we'll transition to any questions you guys have on the project, and then we'll be done here. So what about the coloring, right? We still haven't done the coloring. Here is how we can do the coloring. Let me take some code. Let me take these comments out. We've got this color line down here. we need to figure out how do we go from start column and end column, this range of cells, to changing their color. And it turns out it's actually pretty cool. Let me see. The best way to start here is this. So let's say we're working on row 2. Row 2 is going to start at 12:30, which is over here. And it's going to go until 1:45, which is right there. Okay. This range is AG2 to AK2. Okay. If I come in here and go to my immediate window, there's a couple different ways to do this. Let's use the cells way to do it. I'm going to say row 2, column, what was the column? AG dot address. And that's going to say AG2. Is that the one we want? AG2. There it is. That's the opening column. If I do cells 2 comma AK dot address, it's going to say AK2. So I have my AG2 and my AK2. And I know you're familiar with this right here, range AG2 and AK2, right? We Excel knows that. We know that. That's kind of the common way to reference a specific cell in VBA. It turns out that with this same approach, we can select more than one cell at once, right? So what we can do here is we can say range, and notice this subscript that pops up, cell 1, comma, cell 2. And we can say this is the beginning cell and this is the end cell of the entire range. So we can do this way. We can say range, open parentheses, cells, row 2, comma, AG. And that's going to be the address for this first cell in our range. Then we do a comma, cells, row 2, comma, AK. And that's going to be the column AK and the column AG. And then we do another close parentheses there. And if we do an address, just to show you what this looks like, this is that range, right? AG2 to AK2. That is exactly the range that we want to color in for this row. So what I can do is I can take this and I can say, okay, this is the range we want. I'm going to copy this in here, copy it down here. And now I can use my code. I can say, okay, with that range, change the interior color to 255. Now there's just one more change we have to do, right? What I've done here is, I've hard-coded this row and column. So here's what we have to do. And let me leave this here and just type the changed version down here. Range, cells, and I know what my row is, and I know what my start column is. Row, end column. Dot interior, dot color equals 255. And what that is that's going to color a specific range between these two cells, a specific color. How about that? And that's going to be dynamic based on whichever row we're on and whichever start and ending column we use. Is that crazy or what? That's a little bit crazy. Sorry, can I scroll up here so you guys can see it in the back? I apologize. Okay. So now we're ready to try this. So now what we've done is we've selected the start column. We know what the start column is. We know what the end column is. We've put that into a range, and now we're going to change the color based on those start and end columns. Let's try the Acme runner. So I'll just do F5 from here, select Acme sub runner, and did it work? Okay, let's see. This is row 8. Class starts at 8 o'clock, so that's colored in. Ends at 10:45 right there. There's 10:45. I think we got it. I think we got it. If I wanted to run the whole thing, I would come up here and run this because this is our loop. And boom, look at that. Every row. How about that? There's the code. Okay. How about 5 minutes for help, questions, and then we can do the project? The project, okay. Brennan? Sure.
This is what I got.
Hey, not bad. So you started one column too far this way, right? That's just one column. What's the time on this one? 12:30? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at your code. What does your code say? So you got start hour, start minute, start column, start hour, cells, row I, times 4 minus 17 plus start minutes divided by 15. That looks right. In hour, cells, J times minus end minute 15. Let's see. Do you have your, oh yeah, right there. It is. Got it. Minus 1. Debug concern. Yep. Range cells 2. Okay, so you're still doing row 2. So you need to replace the 2 with the row, which in this case is ROW, right? Because that's where it comes into this sub is the ROW. DB green. And then what is your start? I would run this and then do a stop right before the range. Yep, type and stop right there. And then I'd run it. Run that, sub, click on play, and then click run. And then come up here to the immediate window and do question mark, start call, start column. 15. Okay, is that the right column for row 8, I think is what it was? So let's go to row 8. Your time is what, 8 o'clock? And which column is 8 o'clock? I mean over here. It's gonna start on O, right? Which column is what's column O? You guys remember what column O is?
I just put it on instructions.
Smart. Whatever that column is that 15? Yeah, it's 15. J's 10. So that would be 15. So that's correct. So that start column is correct. Go back up here and do end column. You can either do another question mark or you can go to the other one. Yeah. End call 14. Okay, interesting. So you're saying end before you start. So let's look at your code and see what the code. Why does your end column say 14? Oh, because you're using your start. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. That was good. That was a good catch. I think that should work.
You know how to enable macros? Saying this is not a macro sheet.
Or the whole file isn't enabled.
Yeah.
Weren't you writing the code down?
Yeah. So look, if I go developer,
Doesn't let you run it though. Um, on a Windows, it's in the properties. You have to right click on the file in the properties.
yeah. So because this
Did
is
you have-
technically through like a window.
Oh, right. This is Windows.
So if I go here, right here, but then I go to properties, and it
There's nothing there. Yeah, it should have logged.
advanced.
There's something about the trust. Close it down and open it up one more time and save it first.
This.
Yeah, your whole file. Because it's saved as an XLSM already.
Let's make sure this is saved. Oh, it's on autosave. So if I go here, and then try properties.
No, just try to open it up, see if that works. Oh. Security
Okay.
warning, and then click on enable. Or there too. Yeah, try it now. See if that works. Okay, how we doing?
Everything word for word what you have up there, but every time I hit play, there's a debug error.
Method default of object out of range. Start row. Cells row in call. Start call in call. Debug and it goes to that line.
Am I starting from like a wrong cell over here, or
Let's see. Goes to that line. So you've got this. You've got that. You've got that. Debug start. Come up here and click on do a parentheses. Go up to the immediate window. To the very bottom and do a question mark. And then type in row. Enter. Okay, row 8. And then do another one. Do start call and end call. See if those are. Start COL. Sorry. 15. Okay, I think that's right for row 8. And then end call. Okay, end call is 0. So why is end call 0? End hour times 4. Oh. That should be minus. Should be minus. Try it now. What?
I don't know what's going on. When I went to go run it, this is what
No, we
happened.
I mean, maybe someone in my group had.
Server function not
I
defined.
think it's using.
Oh, is that an L or an I?
It's an L.
Like, what's a rough?
Yeah, it should be an I.
'Cause I
Error still?
yeah, it's still an error.
Doesn't like it. What's your end call now?
Still zero.
Oh. Go ahead and stop it and then try to run it again. Reset. Yep. And then click in there somewhere and do the play and then run the Acme runner. Yeah. Hey, not bad. That's red. It's the right color. And there's no errors, but it looks like your column is off by 1.
Is it? Did I start at the wrong selection?
It's the right row. Start.
Did I start up here?
No, that's good. But yeah, you're really close. It's on row 8, which is what you want. That's red. But it's starting in this column instead of it should be starting in 1 over. Yeah, it should be 1 over. And it should go longer. Try your end call now. What's your end call? Did you do a stop? Oh, you have to stop it, I guess. Go back down to the code here. And before you do the range, do a stop right before that range. Right before you do the range line, like before that line, do a stop. And then run it. And then check what your end column and your start columns are. Because the stop, I mean, you got to run it first though. So you're clicking there, click on play,
pretty much just.
and then do run.
Facing it
And
like-
now you can check your end call and start call because you're in break mode. Okay, 10 more minutes here. Can we talk about the project? What other questions do you have on the project? We did the loop, right? So you should be able to figure out the loop. The other big thing about the project is that web query, right? You're editing the web query. You got to get the right URL. You have to do the find, right? You have to figure out what that VBA code is to find total revenue, find operating, what's the second one? Operating expense, operating profit, and then do the calculation using relative cell references to say whether or not the operating margin is greater than 10%. Different website?
Yeah. Query, so we can collect,
Yeah.
The query working, but it only brings up, it won't bring up.
It only brings up the what? Sorry? Oh, really? It only gives you the news?
Yeah, I would run it, the query works. So it brings in the data, but it only, when it does, it's weird, only brings in news and had put in the code of the stock in there, it also takes another column. It fills that one.
Okay, here's how I would do it. I would create a new sheet called web query, do from legacy, and it gives you all these error message. I just say, okay, okay, whatever. And then for me to set it up, I use the random.org site because because it has the least amount of scripts on it, JavaScript. It's like this random site. It's a very simple web server, pure HTML. And what this does is I create the web query first. I import that into cell A2. If you import it A1, that'll give you some trouble. So you got to do it A2 because A1 is your ticker symbol that you're going to copy from the other sheet and put it into A1. So put this into A2, and this is before you record, right? And here's that site. And now I can go back and record, and I can say, okay, create a macro, record macro, macro 2. I'm going to right click on anywhere in this data, right click on A2, I'll go edit query. And then I don't need to do anything. I just need to click on import again to get the VBA code, right? So I'm going to click import. It's imported it. And now I stop recording and I go look at the macro. Let's see, put it in this sheet. Where to put it? Right here. And this is where I take out this one, right? I can either comment it out or I can delete it. And this is now where I change my HTTP URL, right? This is the one where I type in the new URL. And this is my code right here, right? This is the code that I can copy and paste into my actual code. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that helpful to your question? No, sorry. Okay, any other questions on the project? That might be easier. I could end it now and we can have a little extra minutes for kind of personal debugging. Just as a reminder though, what is the policy for helping each other on a project? Yeah, I would love for you guys to help each other on the projects, but the difference between homework and projects is on the homework, you can actually talk code. You can say, okay, here's the do loop. The do loop looks like this. You have a do, you have a loop, you have a do events, right? You can talk about that all you want in the homework. Your fingers have to be the ones typing on the homework. On the project, you can talk, just don't talk the code. It's a weird line, right? Don't talk about specific code, but you can talk about the sequence of steps that you would take, right? You're going to need a loop. I would say that's like the structure of the code. You're not talking about the code. You're not saying if it's a do loop or a for loop. You're going to need a loop to go through all the lines, right? You're going to need to edit the web query so that it passes in the correct information to go to the correct place, and then you can copy and paste that information back to Excel. In other words, there's ways to talk about the sequence of things that's helpful without talking about the code. So that's where I would say the line is on projects is don't talk code with other people, but you're welcome to talk sequence. ChatGPT, I think our policy is absolutely on projects. Go for it. Don't hold back. If you're completely lost, my recommendation would be don't use ChatGPT. That might get you loster. It's just not there yet, right? Someday in the future, maybe Chat is going to be like, oh yeah, I can do this, blah, 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 blah. But we're not there yet, which I think is interesting. Chat's pretty powerful. I think that also bodes well for this idea of learning how to do this, right? There's some value in that as well. Any other questions? If not, I'll just let everybody go and I'll make some rounds. Is that helpful? Maybe that's most helpful. All right. Thanks so much. Good luck. We will see you next week. Until next time.
So I submitted it and it did it correctly.